The agent was very sympathetic.
Well, yeah, you're in Chicago. Does he have the right to? Yes. Is it journalism? Not in the traditional sense. He's a Twitch streamer. What? Warrantless surveillance? I don't think they're trying to get you to say something that they can then arrest you with. Like, if they've got something on you, they are going to arrest you. Yes, I've been to France before. It's not that novel. I don't really know if you can call him a grifter. I think that he genuinely believes what he says. As some of you may know, Hasan has been detained, has been detentioned, has been stopped, has been questioned. I don't exactly know in the airport. Asked a few questions. Now, I did go over this a little bit yesterday, and kind of looking at a little bit of the response to it, trying to dive in, trying to have a little bit of a read, but I'm not actually sure about the full details. And so I did want to go over today and just do a little bit of a thorough deep dive, okay? So let's have a look. This is the OG post. I got stopped. It's CBP. It global entry for additional questioning. I'm out. It wasn't that bad. Very strange experience overall, though. It happened. He was no, so okay. And then he goes on to explain it more in his stream. Because the thing is, the way he describes it here is, it seems like the tone he has for it here is very, very different to the tone he'll have for it later, which I have found really strange. He needs to sort out that facial hair. I don't know about that. I kind of like the look. I kind of like that kind of look, you know? When you've got, like, facial hair down there, and then, like, a bit of a fuller mustache. I don't know. Anyway.
Boy, do I have some stories to tell you.
So this is a clip from his stream that he posted. Probably gonna watch through it, but 1.25.
Holy moly. They're watching. Oh, the feds are watching. They're always watching. Feds are always like this. Okay, now we know for real. I have a lot of interesting stories to tell you. Man, where do I begin? God damn. Yesterday, I did not actually broadcast for some interesting news. Once again, pre-watch Piker struck again. I remember I was joking about like what I foresaw would potentially happen as I entered the United States of America, and that thing that I foresaw happening actually ended up happening, and I'm obviously going to talk about it. For those of you who don't know, I was detained by Customs and Border Patrol. I was tactically ascertained and engaged in a kinetic situation where I was kinetically moved into a detention center inside of the O'Hare Airport, which I will tell you all about in a second. Oh man, didn't pass the ocular pat down. I believe it was before the ocular pat down. It's the flight manifest that they get ahead of time. They knew who I was and they were ready to receive me. Let's just say, and it wasn't a very warm welcome. So what's happening? What's happening in Chicago? What the was that? You know, this is my
Okay, so you get the flight manifest ahead of time, and they were ready to detain it. I'm not sure about that, okay? Because the details have been scant, okay? The details on this have been incredibly scant. So the way that I've heard it said, it sounds like he's going through, it ends up that, you know, his name flashes up for something, and then they go and, like, speak to him. Because I think that's usually how people get, like, detained or brought in for questioning as they're, like, re-entering their home country, right? Because is he a citizen of the United States, or does he have dual nationality? Sorry, does he have dual citizenship with Turkey? I'd have to read into that.
Second time coming back here. And the first time I was here for the DNC got kicked out. Second time I couldn't even enter the state almost. Definitely an interesting experience, let me tell you, okay? Our story begins at Paris's premier international airport, Charles de Gaulle, okay? Now, I'm somewhat of an experienced traveler, and usually as an experienced traveler, I like to get to the Charles de Gaulle airport early because I know, no disrespect to France, I love the country, but Charles de Gaulle airport is one of the worst in Europe. It's a major hub, but unfortunately, due to, I think, like a lack of interest from the managers of any of these companies where they just refuse to hire additional people. And I feel like in France, you just have to always hire more people because everyone is doing work very slowly, okay? It's just...
The French are lazy. That's the real problem in France, okay? You can boil every single problem down in France to the French are lazy.
the pace that you have to adjust to, and therefore you have to hire more people. There's always like work stoppages and stuff like that, and the unions are relatively powerful, but the corporate overlords will literally punish travelers instead of meeting the...
Oh shit, he was born in New Brunswick. Okay, so he's a naturalized citizen, but it's not that he's been naturalized. He was born in the... Okay, cool. Germans are lazy too, but they don't get shit for it. Germans aren't lazy. Okay, they're not frantic, but they're like efficient and stuff. They're on task. The French, nah.
The actual demands of labor unions
totally
there. So
different.
I've been in a situation where I've been like stuck in France and stuff. Like I had to do crazy maneuvering to get out. So I knew that. And because I knew that, I was like, I'll go 3 hours early. It's something that I never do. Usually I'm actually very slow. But this time I was like, I'll go 3 hours early and everything will be fine. I was already worried that I was going to have issues coming into the country. I had joked about it already. So I was like, at least on the one side, like leaving the country of France will not be that big of a problem. And boy, was I wrong. Okay. Boy, was I wrong. So I hit the triple Monty. I had like a generational run. There was massive traffic going in. When you actually drive into the airport, the person that's dropping you off has to get a ticket at the gate. The ticket actually didn't work.
Okay.
Like, so we were stuck in traffic with like other cars behind us. Like my driver had...
Womp, the airport's annoying. Okay. I don't care about the French traffic. Okay. Paris is annoying to drive through. Yes. Well, whoa, guys. Whoa. Oh my god, you guys, Europe is awful to drive through. Oh my god, have you ever been to France? Have you ever been to France before? Yes, I've been to France before. It's not that novel.
To get out and be like, and figure out if you are going to get harassed even further, or if this level of harassment is fine. Okay. And I asked, and I looked around at all the passports that people had to see if there were other American citizens. And lo and behold, at least in the area that I was at, I was the only American citizen. There was another guy that actually had an American passport as well. Because I asked the terrified family behind me, I was like, hey guys, if you don't mind me asking, like, do you guys have an American passport? They were like, no. So it turns out it's just they're terrifying the shit out of mostly non-American citizens. Okay. But apparently they're also interested in trying to terrify American citizens as well. So they're just like coming in and out. They get this lady in a wheelchair out of there, which I thought was so insane.
He's already been detained. Okay, there's a lady in the wheelchair who's been detained, as well as like foreigners. Okay.
Take a photo. Boom. Walk in. Instantly. The Customs and Border Patrol agent goes, "Step aside, sir." I was like, here we go. All right. She goes, "Step aside, sir. An agent will come and take you to another location." I was like, is that proper protocol? It's like, sometimes it happens. I was like, okay. And I knew at that point, I was like, okay, I'm texting like family. I'm like, this is happening. I'm texting my manager. You know, I was basically I got Lolo on. I was like, listen, you know, I'm going in. All right. I'm freaking going in. Who knows how long this will take? Who knows what will happen? I had already heard like horror stories from people. There was like that one girl on TikTok that had talked about this, and I thought to myself, all right, it's done. It's happening to me as well. It is what it is.
What? Is this a widespread thing? Because this is the first time that I've heard about it. Like, there's going to be random checks, and so if somebody gets pulled aside as they like re-enter the country and they happen to support Palestine, as many Americans do, I could understand that being like a thing. Obviously in Israel, there's going to be a lot of stoppages like at the border to like ask questions and stuff. But in the United States, I feel like a lot of people intrinsically will just be like knee-jerk, like, yeah, it happens all the time. Yeah, it happens all the time. But I don't know if that actually is happening all the time because people are, pro-Palestine on Twitter. I don't think so. This feels like a little bit of kind of like hysteria, but hey-ho.
You know, am Israel high. I'm about to say am Israel high multiple times to get these guys off my back. So I'm waiting in the corner. This Latina ICE agent comes up, picks me up, takes me to this detention center.
Latina?
I sit down, fluorescent light bulbs, the whole nine. Okay. They have benches in the back of O'Hare Airport where there's like a detention area. Okay. There's a detention area. I'm sitting there. There's like a bunch of terrified families. Okay. There's an old lady in a wheelchair. There's like a mom and daughter behind me. There's some like random dude in front of me. And And the way it works is there's a back door, right? And they take your passport, they go to the back door. You don't know what the hell's going on in there, but they sometimes come out and they just say someone's name with their passport in their hands and they go, "You're clear to leave." Basically, when they bring you to the detention area, they, I guess, do some kind of surveillance on your background to figure out if you are going to get harassed even further or if this level of harassment is fine. Okay,
this has all been dressed up like there are proper reasons why people need to be stopped at airports sometimes, okay? Especially when somebody re-enters the country. It's literally a moment that you can take to be like, "Oh, who are you? What's going on?" Oh my god. Remember self-proclaimed and proud propagandist? I mean, I guess so, yeah. It's just, I feel like the narrativization is kind of a little bit cringe, but obviously it's annoying, okay? If you want to describe it as harassment, fine. But if you then want to dive into like a serious political discussion about how this has happened, it's, you know.
And I asked and I looked around at all the passports that people had to see if there were other American citizens. And lo and behold, at least in the area that I was at, I was the only American citizen. There was another guy that actually had an American passport as well. Because I asked the terrified family behind me, I was like, "Hey guys, if you don't mind me asking, like, do you guys have an American passport?" They were like, "No." So it turns out it's just they're terrifying the shit out of mostly non-American citizens. Okay. But apparently they're also interested in trying to terrify American citizens as well. So they're just like coming in and out. They get this lady in a wheelchair out of there, which I thought was so insane. Old lady in a wheelchair is in the ICE detention area.
Could have a bomb in that wheelchair. How do you know there wasn't a bomb in that wheelchair?
And they come out with their passport and they're like, "Here, you can leave." Okay. So that's one thing, right? Like I've had secondary searches and stuff done to me before. I've had the, I think it's called the quadruple S. Like they put the SSSS on your boarding pass and you always get checked randomly when you get hit with that. Like that's happened to me a lot in the past. I get GSR swabbed all the time. That stuff is normal. I've experienced that quite a bit. Okay. But this time I didn't even have the quadruple S on my boarding pass. So I was like, all right, it's probably fine. So I wait. Finally, this agent comes out. Says, "Hasan Piker." I'm like, "That's me. Coming with me." I'm like, "Oh, brother, here we go." They take me to this back room, okay? And the back room is not great. The back room is designed in the most hostile way I've ever been inside of a room.
The room is hostile. Okay, listen, I just want to say my take from yesterday is still the same. If this is like politically motivated, this seems a little yikesy. Don't know if I like this. Maybe it's reasonable. Maybe it's nothing to do with the way that the Trump administration has been changing things. Maybe this would have happened under Biden, okay? Who knows? I cannot say, okay? But the way this has been, like, the way this is being framed is the most, like, I want to agree with you. I want to like you. I want to say that this is like, wow, this is crazy shit. Like, why is this happening? But the room was hostile. The design... Okay.
The vibes are really back there. Everything is
the vibes are really... Is that what?
Way I've ever been inside of a room. The vibes are really back there.
Oh, okay.
Everything is fluorescent light bulb, obviously. They had these 2 seats that were firmly planted into the ground, okay? They were complete metal. They were like tiny stools. Very uncomfortable with like braces on the side so you can handcuff someone to them. Okay. And there was also a seat for like a lawyer. So I sat down on the lawyer seat on the corner to establish dominance because I've watched too many JCS interrogation videos and I knew I had to have command over the room. Okay. So I didn't sit in the chair. Instead, I sat in the lawyer chair. And we got to talking. And let me tell you, folks, the TikTokers that talked about being detained, they were right. It was an insane situation. So it's very obvious that they knew exactly who the I was. It's very obvious that they knew how to like navigate the conversation. And it was a really, really interesting conversation that took place. It was very cordial. Okay, it was very cordial, which I thought it was strange how cordial it was, because I've had run-ins with like cops in the past. I've had run-ins with feds in the past. Well, I guess the FBI was very cordial as well when I had some talks with them in the past. But overall, I was not expecting CBP agents to be cordial. I will say that. Okay. Now, having said that, the entire process is supposed to be intimidating. So it's like suck my cordial or whatever. Okay. I think they were being cordial because they wanted me to.
I don't know if the process is supposed to be intimidating. I mean, they just try and usually, okay. The reason, if you're gonna get detained and like ask questions like, why were you traveling? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? You've made public comments about this. You made public comments about that. It's happened to lefties over different political different political speech. It's happened to righties over different political speech in the past. And usually, it's just one time for like something is on your file that makes us suspect or makes, gives some kind of like throws up some flags about potential like national security threats or national security concerns. All right. And when you're coming in and out at the border, you're not technically in the country yet. And so you don't have quite as many rights, right? You can be stopped and pulled aside for a national security reason, and you don't necessarily have like, whoa, what's your probable cause, right? And so that's usually what it is. It's not to try and catch you out on something so that they can arrest you, right? It's usually information gathering, and so there are concerns on your file, and they can like add to it on your file, right? They can basically increase the amount of information they know, right? Because what you say on social media is one thing, and then what you say to like an officer, that holds a different kind of weight, right?
To say something that was incriminating and say something that was enough to justify further detention from that point on. And let me tell you, they certainly did do that. So he knew exactly who the I was, but he was basically like broaching the conversation in a way where it was like free flowing, where in the process of discovery, he was adding on additional talking points. He always.
Because the thing is, okay, Hasan has traveled before. He's traveled in and out of the US. But the thing here is a lot of people are assuming this is about Israel-Palestine or criticism of the Trump administration. I don't know. The thing that in my mind has probably set off alarm bells here is he was banned from Twitch for violent threats or making violent threats. And it's all about the stuff he said about the senator. But there is probably existing things that would maybe make somebody like, a little bit kind of like, kind of like concerned, right? Might make you like raise your eyebrows. And so there's an inciting incident there. He's probably got on some kind of radar with saying, you should kill Rick Scott, right? Obviously, the context there kind of gives it a different light. Obviously, if you kind of understand the full breadth of what he was saying. But you can understand how that could like, flick a switch and suddenly you're being looked at a little bit more carefully, right? And then, maybe they look into the rest of your kind of like political history or the other things that you've said, right?
Always made it seem as though he was asking certain things that after discovering in the process of that conversation, he would ask additional questions. So, he's like, oh, what are you doing in Chicago? And I was very revealing. I was like, well, I was in France because I want to take my family out for Mother's Day to France, but I had to come back early from France, even though today is technically Mother's Day, because I have a speaking engagement at University of Chicago. And he was like, oh, what kind of speaking engagement? It's like, I don't know, some like journalism school stuff. And he's like, oh, well, since you mentioned that, he kept saying, oh, well, since you mentioned that, what do you do as a job? And I was like, I'm a Twitch streamer. And he's like, well, since you mentioned that you were a Twitch streamer, what kind of things do you stream about? And at first I was like, do I just tell him I play video games? Because I don't think this motherfucker is going to believe me if I say I just play video games to him, right? So I was just like, yeah, I play video games, but I also do current events sometimes, drama, internet. And he's like, oh, do you talk about, since you mentioned that, you talk about the things that you talk about, do you talk about the news? And I was like, yeah, I talk about the news. And he kept saying, okay, so when you talk about the news, do you talk about the war? And I was like, what do you mean by that? He's like, do you talk about Trump? And that was the first time where I was like, what the is this question? Like, I literally straight up told him, I was like, why are you asking me this? Like, I was like, what does this have to do with anything? And it was interesting because the dude asked so many insane questions, none of which is illegal, by the way. I just need you to understand, nothing I've done online is illegal as of now, if that makes sense. Now, laws may change in the future and they might actually start prosecuting speech, which I do fear is the goal of this administration. But so far, everything I've done is fully protected under the First Amendment. Okay?
Is that okay? I want to like flick up and perk up and say, oh, okay, now he's going too far, and now he's saying like, okay, I kind of understand. Okay, I understand what he's saying, and I do kind of agree that the Trump administration has been going a little bit crazy with some of the executive actions and some of the moves that the Trump administration has been making. Obviously, it's had kind of international criticism. It's not just limited to American citizens. Other people have taken interest in this because it does seem a little kooky crazy. Okay, just a tad, you know, kind of deporting people and revoking their immigration status because of like speech, right? So yeah, I'll give him that one. You know what? I'll give him that one. And I think he's spoken about this before. Because if you remember when he had the debate with Ethan, I think Ethan called him I think Ethan mentioned about him being a terrorist supporter, or accused him of being a terrorist supporter. And Hasan said, don't you know what that could do? Don't you know what labeling somebody as a terrorist supporter could do in 2025 under the Trump administration? Which seemed a little bit, and maybe is still a little bit laughable, right? Like the H3H3 podcast labeling him as a terrorist supporter, that's something that's already out there in the milieu, right? That's not something that H3H3 is like, wow, this is the first time that you've ever said this. Like, he had to go on his like uncle's show, like TYT, to explain his comments about Dan Crenshaw getting like raked in the eye by a brave Mujahideen soldier. And then going on to say that America deserved 9/11. You know, like, this has been something that Hasan has had to contend with for a while.
And none of these questions are actually valid questions to ask. But I was entertaining it because, one, I didn't want to present it as being difficult because I didn't want to extend the detention. And two, I actually wanted to see how far I could take it. Maybe it was up of me to do that. Maybe it was not appropriate for me to do that, to play fast and loose with a person that has complete control over my life in that very moment. But I wanted to see like what they were trying to take from this conversation. So, you know, instead of just pleading the fifth as I'm supposed to do in situations like this, I just kept giving him answers. And there were definitely areas where I was very revealing about my position, knowing full well that they know exactly what they're looking for. I saw no reason to hold back on certain things. So I said, I don't like Trump. I was like, what are you going to do? It's protected by the First Amendment. I don't like Trump.
Yeah?
Yes. Right? Like, I was like, I'm not fond of him. I don't like him. He said he was going to end the wars. He hasn't ended the wars. What the is up with that? You know? And the guy actually was very sympathetic. The agent was very sympathetic.
Well, yeah, you're in Chicago. You're in Chicago, which is a kind of like heavily Democrat state. He probably agrees with you. Like, again, this isn't politically motivated, like the border agent is like an agent of Trump, here to take you out because of your opinions on Trump. I think usually he's probably got flagged as some kind of like political extremist, and then somebody's gone in, it's like, okay, cool, put something on his file, next time he comes through, do a little bit of information gathering, okay?
And I don't know if it was like a JCS style interrogation technique to come across.
Yeah, but he's traveled internationally a lot since then without apparent issues. Like I said earlier, I think that what has actually instigated this is a background of comments that he's made, okay? A background of comments that he's made, then combined with what I think is probably the inciting incident, which is the comments about Rick Scott, right? And the Twitch ban. That probably got them on their radar.
Cross is sympathetic to like invoke some kind of positive feelings out of me in an effort to like get me to reveal something maybe that'll trip me up. or because he just genuinely was sympathetic and he had the vibes of someone who was like, I don't know why I'm doing this, right? But he was like, listen, I'm Iraqi, so I know. And let me tell you, I do think that him being Iraqi played a big role in this, because if he wasn't, there was a lot of Redditor ass white boys that are at Customs and Border Patrol at O'Hare Airport. I saw them walk by. There was a dude who looked like he was like 25 max, but he was balding. And I knew immediately, if that mother is my agent, I'm screwed. I'm going to CCOT. This dude is going to literally cook me. So I got a little lucky. All right. I will admit. So basically, I think the reason why they sent the Iraqi CBP agent is because they bracket you into different categories. For me, they wanted to conduct an investigation about my involvement with Hamas and my involvement with the Houthis, or they suspected my involvement with Hezbollah. Straight up. That's literally what this conversation was about. And it's not even a joke. Like, they literally tried to get something out of me that I think they could use to basically detain me permanently.
I doubt that. I genuinely do doubt that. Like, the amount of times that you hear about, you know, somebody being stopped trying to re-enter trying to re-enter their country for questioning, versus somebody trying to re-enter their country and then being arrested for political speech. It's usually they're asking questions to do a little bit of information gathering so they can get you on record saying stuff to an officer, right? And so they can like add that to your file if there's like a concern, right? I don't think they're trying to get you to say something that they can then arrest you with. Like, if they've got something on you, they are going to arrest you. They're not going to arrest you for speech. It's information gathering. But to be fair, I'm disagreeing with the take, but I can understand where he's got this. Like, obviously, being detained and asked questions about your political speech is probably not exactly what you want when you're trying to return home from, like, a foreign country, right?
Which is insane, because there is no direct connection or direct involvement. So we're talking. You know, I'm telling him like, oh, I'm U Chicago. I'm going to be speaking there for the journalism school. I told him like, you know, I don't like Donald Trump. And I was like, so why are you guys doing this? And he's like, oh, it's just like routine. It's a routine process. I was like, it doesn't feel too routine. And basically, my big fear from the entire situation was like, if they were to ask for my phone, not that there's anything incriminating on my phone, but I don't want the federal government inside of my phone beyond all of the times where they probably have been engaging in like warrantless surveillance on my phone or whatever like, it's not your business, you know.
What? Warrantless surveillance? That sounds a little kooky. I don't know. I'm just going to chalk that up to a kooky comment. I'm not sure. That sounds insane.
You know what I mean? It's none of your business. It's a goddamn free country. Like, there's privacy laws for this country. So for those of you who don't know, by the way, they can't actually unlock your phone. But if you have biometrics on your phone, they could technically use that and put the phone to your face and unlock it that way. So just so you know, they could technically do that. Okay. They could technically do that. But there's a trick. Either you get a burner phone when you're traveling internationally, or if you have your regular phone, you can just do a passcode by either canceling biometrics, or if you forgot to cancel biometrics, like your Face ID, what you can do is click it 5 times. If you click hold 5 times in a row, it will actually disable Face ID and it will force you to put your passcode in. And because there are laws against like the agents not being able to force you to put your passcode in, they can't actually access your phone like that. Now, there's different methods of how they can access your phone. From what I understand, they can also put it on a computer and just like plug it into a machine, and the machine just basically takes all of the information in your phone. So it is what it is. I don't know if you can actually do that if your phone is on, but I was thinking about all these things. I had already unlocked the biometrics. Like I disallowed biometrics, and it's a Faraday.
This isn't bad info, to be fair. You're right. It's not bad info. I think from what he's saying, from my experience, like, it's correct. It just seems kooky that he's like, maybe it's warranted. I don't know. I mean, a lot of this is going to come out of like an emotional place, but now he's like thinking how he could escape like federal surveillance when he's like coming back into the country. I just think that's, I don't know.
Cage once you get into the detention center anyway, so you can't actually send any text messages once you're in there. There's no access to the internet. I'm sitting there and they're asking me about Trump. They're asking me about like Hamas. And he kept saying stuff like, do you like Hamas? Like, do you support Hamas? Do you think Hamas is a resistance group? Do you think Hamas is a terrorist group or a resistance group? Like, he just kept asking over and over again, right? And I kept repeating the same statement over and over again. I kept saying a couple different things. One, in terms of like Israel and all the wars, I was like, I'm on the side of civilians. I want the endless bloodshed to end. I am a pacifist.
Which is like,
I want wars to end. I just kept repeating that over and over again. Every single time he asked me a question,
a little
I just
evasive.
kept repeating that. And every single time he asked me a question, a leading question about Hamas, I kept saying, the United States State Department recognizes Hamas as a terrorist organization. The United States State Department recognizes Hamas as a terrorist organization.
Which sounds insanely evasive, so I'm not surprised he kept on trying to ask it a different way.
So he just kept asking me over and over again, like Hamas, Houthis, all the trying to be like, oh, do you support them? Do you like them? Like, what do you...
I mean, yeah, asking for your opinion about the Houthis, or asking your opinion about Hamas, and then you're like, well, the U.S. State Department considers them a terror. Like, huh? Like, you do have a Fifth Amendment right to to refuse questioning. Okay, you have a right to remain silent. But if you do give an answer, especially in like, things like this, when it's not a trial. Okay, it's not a trial. Like I say, this stuff is for information gathering, and so if you refuse to answer, as part of their investigation, they can take a negative inference. When they provide it to a court to convict you, can they say, he refused to answer here? It's, well, not really. It's not solid. But if I ask you, did you kill this woman? And you say, well, the news says that she's dead. It's like, what? Right? You're clearly being evasive when you're being questioned about what you have done, about your opinions, about you, right?
What do you think about them? Which I thought was insane, because the reality of the matter is, up until this very moment, if you were to say, as an American citizen, you stand 10 toes down with Hamas, or you stand 10 toes down with the Houthis, or whatever they can't deny you entry into the country for that. But yeah, I don't know what they're trying to do. So I was like, I'm not going to go beyond it. I'm not going to go beyond just like reiterating over and over again. The American government's position is that Hamas is a terrorist organization. But then he just kept asking me about the Houthis. He's like, well, do you agree with the terrorist designation for the Houthis? And I said, I'm of the Brookings Institute mindset that in 2020, when Donald Trump initially designated the Houthis as a terror organization, that was a major mistake. I talk about these issues from an academic context with humanitarian rights organizations and with academics and with journalists. As a matter of fact, this is completely protected under First Amendment laws. And therefore, I don't understand what the reason why we're having this conversation is. And I kept saying that over and over again, at which point he just like kind of gave up. But what I thought was really interesting was, and I even followed it up with like, I said, I call balls and strikes. And there are things that Trump has done that I actually agree with. And I'm not shy about saying those things, even though initially he said he was going to end all these wars. He hasn't done so. I think these wars are unnecessary. They're costly. And a lot of civilians die in the process. I don't think it's appropriate. I think it's very inappropriate, and it must end, right? Like that's my position. But I do think that Trump did a good thing where he implemented a ceasefire with the Houthis. So when he does stuff like that, when I agree with him, I tell him what's what. When I agree with Trump in a decision, I'm open about it, right? So I explained that to him, and I just yapped away over and over and over again. And what I found to be particularly interesting...
I mean, a lot of this stuff, when he's saying that he's like yapping away, and he's repeating the same thing over and over again, like obviously he's not like cold, calculated, this will be the best answer to give at this moment. He's literally in like a detention center, to be fair, being asked these questions. And so, yeah, I can understand why he's being a little bit evasive.
Was... in the first half of the conversation, it was just like basically a fact-finding mission, right? Try to get me to say something. that I think would be of interest. In the second part of the conversation, there were some real actionable items that he presented that, depending on how I answer those questions, like I'm going to jail. Because the first stuff was just illegal for him to ask me those questions and completely idiotic and ridiculous. And I think they did it because they know who the fuck I am and they wanted to put the fear of God into me.
Well,
not knowing that I'm a
okay. This seems a little psychotic.
Fact-finding mission, right? Try to get me to say something that I think would be of interest. In the second part of the conversation, there were some real actionable items that he presented.
So you're saying if you would have answered these questions, you would have been what? You could have been sent to jail? Like they would have been illegal? Okay. Yeah, I don't think asking those questions are illegal, and I don't think were they asking him about stuff that would have been illegal? Like, did you kill people? Have you ever like sponsored a terror group, right?
That depending on how I answer those questions, like I'm going to jail. Because the first stuff was just illegal for him to ask me those questions and completely.
It's not illegal for him to ask you. How is it illegal for him to ask you those questions? Like you're not arrested. Huh? Hasan is acting like he doesn't have the right to remain silent. I mean, okay. It is illegal to ask you questions in the course of an investigation without reading you your Miranda rights. That's true. That's unconstitutional. And then those answers can't be used. But he thinks this is like an interrogation leading to like him being arrested. It's like, no. It doesn't seem to be that anyway.
Idiotic and ridiculous, and I think they did it because they know who the fuck I am and they wanted to put the fear of God into me, not knowing that I'm a stubborn piece of and that's not going to work at all, right? The second half of the conversation was actually like because he left, went away for like 35 minutes.
Here's the thing. I don't think on one side of this, okay, if they wanted to put the fear of God into you, I can imagine that being the case. If it's like, grrr, you're thinking about like Donald Trump or somebody in the Trump administration, grrr, this Hasan Piker guy supporting, Palestine and stuff. We hate this. We hate this guy supporting Palestine. Not that they did it during the first administration, but they have taken actions that they haven't, okay? And during this second run. So they have done arguably stuff that is unprecedented and potentially you could describe it as an overreach, okay? But they're doing this to put the fear of God into you, but not to get you arrested, but just to like put you under questioning. Like, could they not have done this with an FBI agent? Or with like a Department of Homeland Security agent at your home? Would that not have been more intrusive? It sounds, this just sounds like they're kind of going on like, it's like for an intelligence gathering mission.
Came back, and then he asked like actionable items. But one thing that I will take note of that I thought was very interesting was the fact that a lot of the that like the Ethan Kleins of the world have like cried about over and over again were unironically brought up in that conversation. And I was shocked. I was shocked.
Yo, thank you, Maybe B, for the $10 tip. He's a genius. I think he's valid for having like concerns, and certainly valid for having a certain amount of trepidation and anxiety about this. Maybe he's being a bit paranoid, and maybe you can give him grace for that. But I'm just happening to disagree with him. But thank you for the $10.
Okay, not like the bleach sword, obviously, but like the Houthi. Like, did you interview a Houthi? It says here that you interviewed a Houthi, and I was like,
So, okay. Here's the thing. Ethan Klein called ice on him. Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. Because I was thinking about this earlier. I feel like if Hasan said, like, online narratives are being, like, brought up in this investigation I was having, or in this kind of, like, during this questioning, blah, 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 blah. But to try and place that at Ethan's feet, I don't think is fair. Like, he got criticism for the Houthi thing when it happened. Did Ethan talk about it? Yeah. A lot of people talked about it. Most people on Twitch talked about it. It was a huge event. He got huge viewership. People still reference it to this day, years later. But it's not like, oh my god, Ethan has been talking about this, and now I'm being asked this by a border security agent. It's like, I don't see the link there, but okay.
Was he actually a Houthi? And I was like, he's not. You can look to all of the reporting that came out afterwards and before I interviewed him, that he's not a Houthi, that he is a regular Yemeni citizen. And I said, like, his name is Rashid al-Haddad. He is not even a Shia. And the dude, luckily, again, Iraqi, went, oh, yeah, that's right. That's a Sunni last name. Al-Haddad is a Sunni last name. So he must not have been a Houthi. And the very fact that that was like a point of contention that could have gotten me arrested is insane.
No, it wouldn't have got you arrested. Oh, my God. Okay. This would not have gotten him arrested, okay? Because this makes no sense. This happened over a year ago. If this is what they wanted to go at you for, why would it be when you're coming back in? Do you think that, really, the American government is trying to go after you, they're trying to arrest you, and then over the course of that, they're going to ask you, was that guy a Houthi? And see if you can argue against that and convince them, like, well enough. And if you can't convince them, then... what, you're going to jail? No. They probably just want to find out, do you think he was a Houthi? Do you think he was a Houthi? If we say, was he a Houthi to you, what's your answer going to be? We wonder. Oh, I understand this has happened to him, and so it's like, you know, he's probably thinking this in the moment. Like, this is crazy. Am I going to get arrested during this? These are his genuine thoughts, but this is, like, insane and a little bit overly paranoid. Like, he thinks they're out to get him. I
genuinely, in that moment, was thinking, like, these dumbass slop tubers are actually playing with fire. And I even thought about not even mentioning this because I was like, I don't want to give him any sort of, like, power over the situation. But, like, the reality of the matter is 100% the Trump administration is inadvertently working with a lot of these dipshits.
Oh my god, dude. And I think this is the worst bit of the clip. I saw this going around. Fuck me. I saw this going around. They're inadvertently working with... He needs to lose this. He needs to lose this. Because he's used the same verbiage around, you know, Ethan working with the ADL. And it hits everyone's ears wrong. He hits everyone's ears wrong. And I've already seen... retards, frankly, already going, oh, Hasan thinks that, like, drama YouTubers are working with the Trump administration. He's saying inadvertently, he's saying they're working towards the same goal or whatever. But what? People should be allowed to, like, criticize you. I think a lot of the criticism, there's a degree of criticism that Hasan gets that I think is purely that does come out of the Nuxtaku, Achiso, slop tuber space, okay? And whenever I read it, or whenever I watch it, I kind of like just roll my eyes and like, this is retarded, okay? And then move on. But I don't think that they're influencing the Trump administration. I think this is just something already out there in the cultural milieu. They're not considering their own personal takes. Watching a lot of their coverage on other things, they're just copying the popular narrative on Twitter. This is something that's already in the cultural zeitgeist, that you brought on a Houthi.
Dip are playing a
Probably because you advertised him and saying, are we talking to a Houthi Hasan today? He says, yes, brother. What do you mean? Like, you advertised it like that tongue-in-cheek, and then you want to complain that people think you are actually talking to a Houthi. They're playing with fire. You're playing with fire, you fucking retard.
Role in getting people in trouble with the law. Okay, that is literally the case. It was shocking that that was the case, but it is the case. And it's actually very frustrating that it is the case, that this administration doesn't care. That's why they work with Beitar. That's why they work with all these other insane groups. The Barry Weisses of the world actually have motion in this goddamn admin. They're cheering this on over at eSub. Yeah, I know. They can suck my liberals, by the way. One of the largest progressive voices in the country getting detained by the Trump Gestapo. Like, what a wonderful progressive audience they have over there. Anyway, they're straight up fascist at this point. So my point is, it's crazy that like these were actual questions. Like they asked me about my Twitch bans.
Rate Hasan's drip. Okay, I will say, I do like the shirt. Okay, I like the overshirt. I actually do like the embroidery. Okay, I think that's kind of cool. I've got like similar thing on like some of my jackets. Right, it just looks kind of neat. Okay, I like that. The tan on the white, we like that as well. I like the color in the necklace. It's kind of got a little bit of variation on there, but it kind of goes with the shirt, and then the jacket provides like a nice little bit of just kind of light contrast. However, t-shirt rides down way too low to be able to ride that necklace, to be able to wear that necklace, personally. And I think if you are going to wear something like this, you probably want like a longer like beads thing, because it looks like an old woman's necklace right now, right? He's wearing a pearl necklace. That's what it looks like. It looks like an old woman's necklace that you might see, right? You can say, like, maybe if it was longer, right, and it came down to, like, here on his chest, but just around the neck, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
And I talked about blowback. I talked about how, you know, I said America deserved 9/11 and it was misconstrued.
Okay.
You know, I do have sometimes I use hyperbolic language and it gets taken out of context or whatever.
Okay.
And he agreed with the blowback sentiment in terms of like the 9/11 stuff. Yeah, they asked me about my Twitch bans, chat. It's not even a joke. They asked me about Twitch bans.
Yeah, because the only Twitch ban you got banned for what Twitch thought was like you inciting violence against a sitting US senator.
The other Twitch ban he asked me about was the last one that I got banned, and I explained to him like, this is, man, you really talk way too much. Lawyer will be pretty upset at you. Dude, what are you talking about? I know that under normal circumstances, I'm supposed to say, I want a lawyer. I don't want to talk to you. But nothing I'm doing is illegal. And I also wanted to see what would happen. Do you understand? I wanted to see what would happen. I wanted to actually see this experience, which is why instead of immediately lawyering up, I was like, no, I'm gonna entertain this. I'm gonna see what they actually are trying to get out of this. And I'm glad I did this because
I'm not sure on that. Instinctively, intuitively, I want to say asking for a lawyer could probably be the best thing you could do here. Right? If you're ever being detained for like questioning, asking to have like legal counsel with that there with you is probably the best thing you can do. But I don't know. I've never been in this situation, and to be honest, I've never thought what would it be like to be in this situation.
Because the reality of the matter is, one, I'm profoundly privileged. Okay, remember, I'm a public person, and also I have enough money to be able to fight back against this sort of thing, and they know who the I am. So obviously the reason for why they're doing that is, I think, to try to create an environment of fear, to try to get people like myself, or at least like others that would be in my shoes that don't have that same level of security, to shut the fuck up. And
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's true. Like, people who what? I mean, has Kyle Kalinske been detained? I don't know. Hasan is probably the most kind of like audacious, edgy kind of people who people who like speak on the on these issues, right? And he says pretty inflammatory things that he can say, wow, you know, this is taken out of context. Wow, people don't actually understand what I'm actually saying. Wow, people don't understand me. It's like, okay, cool. Kyle Kalinske has got none of the clips that Hasan has got. You've got other huge figures that have said, like, you know, talked about Israel-Palestine, talked about Russia-Ukraine, and have taken the same positions as Hasan. And I don't know if they've been stopped at the border recently. And especially with them being, like, huge media figures, I'd probably assume that there are other big media figures who have the same kind of perspective as Hasan, who probably traveled internationally at some point. So I'm not sure about that. There's no grand design. I doubt it as well. It seems way too kind of like... It seems way too big picture. Seems way too big picture. Now, could this be used to create an environment of fear? Maybe. But it just seems like schizo brain stuff.
And for me, I'm going to use the privilege that I have in that moment to try and see what the they're doing, okay? Because every single thing that they ask me, trying to get me to say something like, oh, I support Hamas or whatever, is literally not allowed. Like, what the do you mean? Like, why is this denying me entry into the country?
Well, they haven't denied you entry. I think that's probably the issue, right? I think this is the key thing, right? You haven't been denied entry. You can just be stopped and asked questions for very, very little reason, I think. I'd have to have a look, but I'm pretty sure there's not a whole lot of reason why they would have to give to detain you. It could literally be they want to ask questions and want to gather some kind of information because there have been like some concerns. That's gonna be it.
My birth, like, this is my birthright. I'm an American citizen. You can't just stop me at the border and be like, what's your opinion on Donald Trump? You're not allowed to enter the nation. Like, that was the first half. Like I said, they asked about the Twitch bans. They asked about like the Rick Scott statement. And I was like, listen.
He's just playing it up to keep a faux revolutionary act up.
Thank you for the £5. Nah, I reckon it's legit. You can say a lot. You can say a lot about Hasan, but I don't really know if you can call him a grifter. I think that he genuinely believes what he says. And I think he probably does have this. He probably was like afraid and a little bit kind of schizo and a little kind of paranoid and anxious. But at the same time, yeah, you're tied between wanting to comply and wanting to answer questions, but then being nervous and whatever, and then feeling like you're being put like it's an imposition like put on you or whatever, you know. But yeah,
laughed. I was like, I'm not.
Without context, that sounds fucking crazy.
Insane. But instead, I explained to him, like, I was talking about the hypocrisy of the Republicans, blah, blah, blah. I explained away all that and he was understanding. Then he went back and he came back. Wait. Senator, to be insane. But like the Rick Scott statement, and I'm on Donald Trump, you're not allowed to enter the nation. Like, that was the first half. Like I said, they asked about the Twitch bans. They asked about like the Rick Scott statement. And I was like, listen, you know, I laughed. I was like, I'm not calling for the assassination of a sitting senator, to be insane. But instead, I explained to him, like, I was talking about the hypocrisy of the Republicans, blah, blah, blah. I explained away all that and he was understanding. Then he went back and he came back. And the actionable items that came up afterwards was basically asking me.
The Director for National Security said all this stuff was a lie. Yeah, but he didn't provide anything to say that it was like to refute it, right? So
about if I had ever been in contact with Hamas, if I'd ever been in contact with the Houthis, directly or indirectly, if I'd ever actually been in contact with Hezbollah, if I'd actually ever offered financial support or logistics or any kind of support to Hamas, Hezbollah, or Houthis. They straight up asked me that. And I laughed. I said, no, of course not. But yeah, that was, once again, these are questions that they're asking. But one thing that I thought was really interesting was in the actionable side of things, they also asked, have you ever interviewed a member of Hamas? Have you ever had a communication or correspondence with a member of Hamas, Hezbollah, or the Houthis? Now, what's really insane about that is that as someone who works in media, sometimes I do actually do journalism, right? As I've maintained this position over and over again. And I said that I would, if given the opportunity, talk to someone that is a part of the Ansar Allah movement, a Houthi.
Okay, I don't think they're trying to... Okay. They're not trying to see what kind of moral fiber are you, what kind of moral caliber are you made of, Hasan Piker? Would you speak to a disgusting Hamas terrorist? No, they're probably asking you, have you ever talked to or interviewed a Hamas terrorist? Because it's very, very hard to find somebody to go on camera and say, yes, I am a Hamas terrorist. And so that might imply you have some kind of links that would get you that kind of interview or get you that kind of, kind of opportunity to speak with them, right?
Or even Hamas or even Hezbollah, right? I think that I have the right to do so. So that is the
he
part
does have the
where
right
they
to
were
do
like,
so, though.
if you answer yes to any of that, that's when, there's like actually illegal stuff in there. Having said that, there is...
However, it does create a difficult thing as well, though, because does he have the right to? Yes. Is it journalism? Not in the traditional sense. He's a Twitch streamer. you can maybe consider it journalism, right? But legally, I think all you could really say for it is it's with journalistic intent. It's like citizen journalism. He's got no ties to like a traditional media outlet that would legitimize that. He's doing it because he like wants to, not because it's like his job. He's choosing to. He's choosing to make content out of that. But it's ever so slightly subtly different. And so I feel like if it was going to be suspicious, can you like arrest a BBC reporter for having an interview with somebody who works for Hamas? No. What the fuck are you talking about? They're a fucking reporter. They're a journalist. That's what their job is. A Twitch streamer, on the other hand, does not have the same kind of understandable, reasonable kind of boom, legitimate basis, completely understand, right? For somebody in like alternative media or in live streaming, it still remains somewhat suspicious, although it might kind of explain it away to a certain degree.
There's one part of it that wasn't illegal, which is being in communications or being in contact with someone in Hamas. Like, that is a part of journalism you actually can do. It's ridiculous. Like, you can interview ISIS. Like, what are we talking about? The notion that this would be an issue for the Customs and Border Patrol is ridiculous. Okay, I mean, Donald Trump is in contact with Hamas. He had a
Here's the thing: if they had something on you that they wanted to arrest you for, they would have just arrested you. Okay, they're asking you about your comments about Rick Scott to get you on the record with your comments about it and see if there's anything more revealing there that they can, like, you know, store away and use. If you say something crazy like, yes, I want to kill Rick Scott, I'm currently here on my way, currently I've returned to the US to kill Rick Scott, it's like, yeah, that's crazy. They'll probably arrest you then, but they're probably just expecting to get more information.
Envoy directly talked to Hamas a couple months prior. He's in direct contact with the Houthis. Like, what are you talking about? And so is Dropsite. Like, the idea that this will deny you entry into the country is like, what are we talking about? What do you mean? Like, what kind of insane double standard is there? Right? So that part was frustrating.
I mean, it kind of makes an interesting comment as well, that he did start out the interview saying that he was somebody who, like, played games and then sometimes talked about current events and trending topics and drama. And now he's relying on the defense of, well, I do journalism. I do journalism. I'm completely within my right to speak to a member of the Houthis Ansar Allah, okay? What could there possibly be that is suspicious for me, a gaming streamer who sometimes talks about, like, current events and drama and stuff, speaking to a member of the Houthis, you know? Like, he can't really posture both ways. Do I think their silence done anything that requires being arrested? No. Do I think that national defense a lot of the time is set up to, like, ask these questions so they can do intelligence gathering, so they can, like, broaden out their base and, you know, try and apprehend things pretty early? Yeah. Especially when it's like they detain you at the border before you let entry, and then they kind of, like, have an interview with you, ask you some questions, right? Does that mean Dickers as a journalist now? That's right. Give me my fucking press ID, okay? Give me my press credentials. I'm going into Gaza.
And the interview, interrogation, whatever you want to call it, that basically ended with me asking, like, so what is the purpose of this? Like, am I being detained? And because I was like, you know that I'm going to talk about this. I was like, a lot of people have talked about this, like, detainment structure. And he was like, yeah, people really exaggerate how these things go. And I was like, well, it is not a great situation to be in, you know? Like, what do you mean? And yeah, he was like, yeah, there's been a lot of reporting on, you know, the conditions in situations like this in detainment, but you're not technically detained. I was like, so I can leave? Like, I asked him, like, I was like, am I detained? And he's like, no. I was like, all right, so what's the purpose of this entire situation? I could just walk out right now. And basically, when I said that, the interview ended. So I don't know if that was something that I should have said from the start. Am I being detainment? But you're not technical about this. I was like, a lot of people have talked about this, like, detainment structure. And he was like, the idea that this will deny you entry into the country is like, what are we talking about? What do you mean? Like, what kind of insane double standard is there? right? So that part was frustrating. And the interview interrogation, whatever you want to call it, that basically ended with me asking, like, so what is the purpose of this? Like, am I being detained? And because I was like, you know that I'm going to talk about this. I was like, a lot of people have talked about this like detainment structure. And he was like, yeah, people really exaggerate how these things go. And I was like, well, it is not a great situation to be in, you know, like, what do you mean? And yeah, he was like, yeah, there's been a lot of reporting on, you know, the conditions in situations like this in detainment, but you're not technically detained. I was like, so I can leave? Like, I asked him, like, I was like, am I detained? And he's like, no. And I was like, all right, so what's the purpose of this entire situation? I can just walk.
I mean, I think you're taken into a detention center, but you're technically not detained because you're technically not in the United States yet. I think is how it works. In terms of legality, you haven't been allowed past the border, right? You haven't been allowed past the port of entry. You haven't been allowed into the country yet, right? And so you're not technically detained, but they're not allowing you in yet. It's a weird situation legally that I think we don't really like talk about or think about very often, but it's very strange.
Out right now, and basically when I said that, the interview ended. So I don't know if that was something that I should have said from the start. Am I being detained? You know, what's the deal here?
It sounds like you've answered all of his questions.
You don't have... Okay, chatters, I need you to understand something.
Fourth Amendment.
So after I said, am I being detained or whatever, he was like, no, well, you know, he didn't like abruptly end it. He kept asking some questions.
Oh, okay.
But it pretty much ended after that. And I don't know if that's...
So he didn't abruptly end it after you... So he asked more questions after that. Okay. It sounds like you probably just got to the end of his question, right? Then, maybe? Oh yeah, it gets unreasonable searches and seizures. What are they searching or seizing?
I got lucky there because when I asked, like, am I free to go, that kind of stopped the process a little bit. And I don't know if that's the reason why I didn't have them look through my phone, but I wasn't planning on letting them look through my phone anyway. That was my point. Like, there was a line where I was going to say, I'm done with this. Either arrest me or, you know, let me go. I don't know what's happening here. I got detained. I didn't get detained. Yes, chatter. Yes. ICE agents took me to a detention center. That is a de facto detention. Like, what are you talking about?
Is a detention and a detainment the same thing?
Of it was like 2 hours, which was definitely faster than I thought it was going to be, I will admit. And I probably should have asked, am I being detained from the start? And I wonder what would have happened. But I basically asked him, like, do you think this is going to happen again? Right? I was like, is this going to happen again? And he said, maybe. And he gave me this piece of paper.
He's a foot soldier. How the f is he supposed to know?
From Homeland Security. What is DHS TRIP? Okay. And you can, I guess, submit an inquiry at dhs.gov/trip and ask why I was stopped. You will be prompted to describe your particular concerns and experience, provide contact information to which a response will be directed, and be assigned a case number to help you monitor the progress of your inquiry, which I will do. Okay, I will do this. And he basically said, you know, you can figure out what not to do so that this doesn't happen again. And I suspect the what not to do is just don't be a political commentator that speaks about American foreign policy.
I don't know, because I don't know if it's foreign policy that got him in trouble. I mean, if we take a look here. Yeah, I mean, 2 months ago, reporting on Fox News, left-wing streamer walks back comments about Rick Scott following Twitch suspension. YouTuber Hasan Piker previously called Hamas a lesser evil than Israel and claimed the US deserved 9/11. Is this going to have all his greatest hits? Okay, so they talk about the killing of Rick Scott, or the, you know. This is Piker's 5th Twitch suspension. I didn't realize that. I'll choose my words more carefully next time. Okay. Oh my god, this Fox News article also references the Houthi interview. Oh my god, it even references the eye fucking of Dan Crenshaw. During a 2019 live stream, Piker praised the brave fucking soldier who wounded conservative U.S. Representative Dan Crenshaw, Republican Texas, while he was deployed to Afghanistan as a Navy SEAL, asking, didn't he go to war and, like, literally lose his eye because some mujahideen, a brave fucking soldier, fucked his eye with their dick? Okay, and then, yeah. America deserved 9/11, and yeah. Yeah. I think that's probably, I mean, what I said there, right? The exact thought process of this article that I just got sent. The exact thought process of this article is kind of what I think that, you know, kind of incited this, right? Somebody makes a comment about Rick Scott. He gets banned for it. So there seems to be something here about it. And then start looking, like, more into his history, into further comments that he's made, and like, maybe there's like a, maybe there's a little, we add like a chili, we add like a chili pepper to his file, okay? We'll start a dossier with like a chili. He's kind of a spicy boy, you know? Let's finish this.
Which is not something I'm planning on stopping. Now, why did I tell you guys about this experience? Okay? Why did I tell you about this entire experience? Like, because in my mind, I thought maybe I shouldn't reveal this stuff because I think, like, the goal here is to put fear into people's hearts, to have a chilling effect on speech, that, like, the government is unafraid of intimidating you in illegal ways, okay? The government is now officially willing and able to intimidate you for your speech. That is a direct violation of the First Amendment. I'm no First Amendment auditor. I'm no big city libertarian. I'm no Mr. Admiral Maritime Law. But the reality of the matter is that as of this administration,
I understand this is a personal opinion, but I just think I kind of disagree with it.
Are totally willing and able to actually come after you for your speech. And even with, like, ridiculous, like, they're willing and able to go along with, like, stuff that gets written in the free press, or willing and able to go along with that even editors bring up. Okay, that's how stupid and silly this situation has gotten. Now, of course, does this stop me from saying whatever
oh my God, Hasan is obsessed with Redditism, with, like, slop tubers and Ethan Klein. I'm guessing it's probably because it's been reported in mainstream media publications. Like, he's a huge Twitch streamer. Like the 20th, like, top 20 biggest Twitch streamers on the platform. And then, like, arguably he is, like, the biggest politics streamer.
Say, of course not. Don't be ridiculous. But the reason why I wanted to talk about it was to give you more insight into what the government is doing and to speak out against this sort of stuff, because I do have a position of privilege here, and I want to make sure that, like, you should know your rights, that you should not be fearful, and you should not worry, especially if you're an American citizen, that these guys are going to come after you and, like, arrest you or something. Okay? But it is pretty wild, I will say. As someone who's been held up in airports many times over, it was actually shocking that these guys totally grabbed me, knowing exactly who I am, knowing that I will most likely talk about this, with the hopes that I think that they would at least stoke some fear and threaten people like myself, and then also threaten others as a byproduct of this. I mean, it backfired in my situation, but I hope this doesn't discourage others from speaking out as well. They don't have the right to do this, okay? They do not have a right to do this.
Unfortunately, they actually do. So, I mean, we'll see. If he wants to fight it, he can. But they do have a right to do this, unfortunately. Oh my God, you guys, Europe is awful to drive through.